This is Death or Prison, brought to you by leanonmeusa.org. The men you are about to hear have spent more than 50 years in prison. We bring you stories of hope and encouragement.
I am here with my brothers and co-hosts, Mr. Lázaro Lopez to my left and Mr. Elmo Golden to my right. We are talking about numbers today. And the numbers that I'm going to start out talking about is some that we understand and we have in common. There are 2.3 million people in prison right now in the United States of America. There are another 3.6 million on probation, another 840,000 on parole, and over 10 million people that pass through the county jail at any given time throughout 1 year in the United States of America.
Wow.
We're talking about over 20 million people who are returning citizens, or as some dub, ex-offenders, living in the United States right now.
If you talk about right now in these times, not going into the COVID-19 about the pandemic, but this is a pandemic that we have to deal with. Talk about numbers.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
You know, because when I was forced to trade in my name for a number, DC number 199683, it was something that it was so dehumanizing. It was impersonal. It just made me part of like cattle. You know what I'm saying? If you look at the yard and you see everybody just walking around, all you need is the moon.
That's
you
it.
know?
That's it.
And that's the kind of stuff that people on the outside don't understand, especially our youth.
It's funny that you bring those numbers up, and to some of our viewers, those numbers don't mean absolutely anything.
That's correct.
But then there's a group that it means everything to, like our family members, like our children, like our friends. Those numbers have affected not only us, but it's actually been transmitted to the people we love.
Yes.
And so I think one of the things that we actually really needed to discuss is how those numbers are affecting us as a society. See, you have to remember, even when you say probation, parole, when you say the people that are incarcerated, 80% of those people are actually going to get out.
Absolutely.
And they're going to have jobs. They're going to have homes. They're going to have to enroll in school and make purchases. And so those same people will be living next to you. They will become your co-workers. Some of them you may even marry into your family. So it affects us all, even if we try to separate it. So those numbers should mean everything to everyone.
One of the things that they didn't say in the courtroom when they said, Mr. Branham, we now sentence you to 17 years. They didn't say to my daughters who were toddlers at the time, we're now sentencing you to 17 years without a father. They didn't say to my mom and my dad, we're now sentencing you to 17 years without your son. They didn't say to my sisters that they're sentencing you to 17 years without your brother. So these are the ripple effects of someone who has been missing out of society, so to speak, and not active in the family, and how it affects. And I love that you brought up the point about, the after effect of the numbers, so to speak. But at one point, at a normal rate, when society was at its normal stance, unemployment for returning citizens was at 27%.
Now, again,
that's staggering.
To those who are listening, we're not playing the victim here. I mean, I don't know about you, gentlemen, but I was guilty of my crime. You know what I'm saying? And I'm ready to do, and I did my time. In that time that I've been out now 13 years, I mean, there's been some difficult times.
Yes.
Some difficult times for employment, for residency, all types because of our record. You get out of prison, you're still that number.
Absolutely.
Still that number.
And if you look at society, though, it's like undercover, though, because like, you're not recognized to the government under, Johnny or Mo. You're recognized by your social security number.
Absolutely.
Your vehicle is not recognized by what you own. It's by your tag number. Even if you go to the store, you go to the butcher. Hey, get a number. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And so what we're trying to do today is to obviously let you recognize, especially if you're in that world, if you're in that atmosphere, man, that you're in a crucial point in your life where you can make some good decisions. You can be 14, 15 years old. Who you're hanging with, who you're associating with. I mean, we look at that. I mean, I remember when I was, about 16 years old and looking at the video, music videotapes with, Ice and trust me, I'm Tupac, Ice Cube, Biggie. I'm all with it now. But the thing is, the subliminal messages behind it. They go to court and they're out the next day.
Absolutely.
And so, here I am, 17 aggravated assaults, 12 armed robberies, and facing 104 years. Now, all of a sudden, all the machoism, all the gangster, OG, that's out the window. My knees are shaking, and if I could listen.
Right.
It was a situation. So, man, if you're listening, you can avoid all this thing. And I'm not just saying, the old Nancy Reagan, just say no or stay in school. I understand life is life and the atmosphere and the neighborhood you're brought up in. We're going to have future guests that hey, we were raised this way, or this is where without a father, or I was abused, or whatever the case may be. In my case, there was no abuse. There was no abandonment. Why did I decide to go the way that I went? It was because I was deceived. It was all about that money, about that cheese. So these are the things that we have to actually understand that, hey, don't get deceived, man. Look at for what it's worth, because the consequences are so much more. The adversary shows you one thing.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Get up quick. You know what I'm saying? This is how we roll. But you don't know what the consequences are.
Absolutely. Right. I remember growing up and looking at, prison and jails from the Hollywood perspective.
Yes.
And that's kind of how people see it today, and it's kind of how you see it with like what you mentioned, Ice Cube and the other rappers and things like that. They go into court, they smile, and it almost like they laugh in the judge's face, and all of that is Hollywood for a reason, because it's a show. In real life,
right.
I've seen youth at 16 years old with life sentences.
Yes.
I've seen youth with 30 and 40-year sentences because they continued down a path.
Right.
We are here as living testimonies. We're here standing with the sign saying that road is closed and it leads to a cliff, and we're trying to tell you what's on the other side of it. And so when I talk about that, I look at some of the things that I saw while I was there, some of the misconceptions that I had. When people say that food is bad, I don't think they really get a vivid idea of how bad it can be. I don't think the youth really know sometimes the fire that they're playing with, because when someone's telling you from 8 a.m., and we can talk about this a little bit, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., what does your day look like? Well, I'll tell you what it looks like for someone that's in prison. Every single move you make, you're being told what to do.
That is correct.
You're being told when to eat. If you need to use the restroom, yes, there are times when if you have to use the restroom and they're counting, that means they're giving accountability of everyone on the compound. You are not allowed to go use the restroom. I don't care how bad you got to go.
That's right.
You will sit right there on your bunk and wait until they say you can go to the restroom. I don't care if you're sick. How many times we've been to medical or somewhere and the nurse tells you you're not sick enough. Here's some Tylenol. Go back to your dorm. Control.
Yes, yes.
And so that's the harsh realities that I don't think sometimes people take into account. And if you were like me, I thought, well, maybe because it's my first time, they're just going to slap me on the wrist.
Yes.
My slap on the wrist was 17 years.
Yeah. One of the other points you left out was coughing. I need you to cough 2 times. While your butt cheeks are spread open, so I can look and do a cavity search. The waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning with dogs in your room. So again, this is not a scared straight. What we're trying to do is just give you this information so you can make the choice, that you can make a good decision and say that that's not how I want to be treated. How about when you're taking the shower and the plumbing backs up and all of a sudden you're standing in feces?
That's right.
See, these are the things that they're not telling you. There's nothing glamorous about being incarcerated. I didn't learn that on my first time. My first time I went to prison, I was 17 years old and I had 12 years. That wasn't good enough for me. I had to go back. And so I got sentenced 11 years later to a 20-year sentence, and I did 17 years. And I thank God that I'm home now. I've been home 8 months. Now here's something real funny. My sister knows my number.
Oh.
My mother knows my number.
Yep.
I'll say what's my DC number, and they'll tell me 106418. They'll rattle it off. This is because they did the time with me.
That is correct.
So for 17 years, I held my family in captivity. I did that by the decisions that I make. And it's easy when you can say that you love your family and you want them to move forward and you want them to grow and you want them to understand that poverty is a disease and you want to do everything that you can, but at the same time, that one decision you can wreck and ruin your whole family's life.
That is
for
correct.
a generation.
Now, I want to take this opportunity also, if you're listening and you have a relative, a father, a son, a husband, or a wife incarcerated, there's still hope. There was hope for us. Behind them walls, we had a tremendous encounter with Jesus, and we want to be straight up.
Yes.
But if you do have that relative, let me tell you something. Start praying for him. Start bending knees for that brother, because let me tell you, nothing is impossible with God. I mean, he delivered me from 104 years. I was a crack addict, alcoholic, you name it, you call it, I was there. But God can change your life.
When you hear the term reentry, re-entry, when someone is re-entering into society, there is literally a need like a newborn baby. If you ever had, seen a child born or you have a grandchild born, they're pretty much helpless and defenseless. That's pretty much where you are. If you've been gone, I don't care if it's 2 years, 3 years, 5, 10, 20, you're going to need someone to help you.
Yes.
Because a part of those numbers, one of the things that I like to talk about is the de facto life sentence. And what I mean by de facto life sentence is the things that follow you even after your sentence is completely gone. I'm talking about you going to rent an apartment and you've had a job and you've got good credit and you've got the money, but they say, sorry, sir, your background check didn't come back correct. You have something in your background and you tell them, well, that's been 20 years ago. Sorry, we have a blanket policy. We don't rent to people who have felon in their background. Those are the ripple effects. And that adds to returning citizens 10 times, they say, are more likely to be homeless. And I will tell you, it's not for lack of trying. It's not for lack of jobs. And it's not for lack of availability in housing. It's because of one of those reasons right there, background checks.
Right.
So...
And we understand, because we get some believers and Matthew 6:33. I mean, seek the kingdom of heaven first, and all its righteousness, and all these things will be added on to you.
That's right.
And you know what? It is true. I mean, when I was behind them walls, my hope was that I said, I know God is going to provide, and He has. But it's been difficult. There's been times where I've said, you know what? I've been tempted to go back to the same lifestyle. You see what I'm saying? But if it wasn't for the numbers of accountability brothers that I had.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
That's where you lean on. This is why you need the help. You can't be a lone ranger in this thing.
Right.
That's why we see the recidivism, how it happens. People get out and they come back. They have the right mental attitude. They have good intentions. And Sunday service, just one church service a week, is not enough.
That's right.
No.
It's
Absolutely.
not enough. We're not saying that we got to get religious. It doesn't say that we got to get fanatical about this thing, but we got to be passionate. The same commitment that we had to do the wrong thing with that aggressiveness.
That's right.
Yes.
We got to do it in the spirit. We got to do this to do the right thing.
And I'm going to say this, that, there are people with open arms that are waiting to help you. As a matter of fact, the reason we're here is because a young man came into the institution and said, you know what, I'm going to be a champion for you. I'll work with you. I'll work for you. And we didn't even ask for this help, but then now we're committed to making sure that our young people, our children, our boys and girls receive that same help, and that we not only help them to prosper, but we teach them how to give help to other people, because we need to start breaking these curses.
Absolutely.
So it's important that you listen to us. I love how eloquently my brother spoke about those numbers. We can change those numbers.
Yes.
We can change those numbers, those accountability numbers. We can support ourselves and kind of insulate ourselves with good people.
Absolutely.
Good information.
Absolutely.
And then we can also desire to dream again. And I think that's what's wrong with our youth right now. The dreams are being taken away from them.
Their identity. That is correct. It's identity theft. It's
That's
identity theft.
Amen.
You have to know who you are and whose you are.
Absolutely.
And that's where God comes in. Amen.
Yeah.
Without God, you can't do nothing. But with him, we can accomplish all things.
Absolutely. If you're talking to a parent, I'm talking to you, Laz, I'm talking to you, Elmo. If you're talking to a parent who says there's a disconnect with my youth, I see some erratic behavior. I see him starting to hang out with the wrong crowd. I don't understand his music. I don't know why, he's 11 or 12 years old and he likes hanging around this 15 or 16-year-old. I don't understand what he's doing. He's starting to display some deviant behavior. What's your advice to them?
Well, everything you just mentioned are red flags.
That's right.
These are the red flags that now you got to get involved. You got to get involved. Don't let your iPad and your programs and your apps raise your kids. You gotta get involved. Got to get involved in who they're speaking with. You got to go into their room. Listen, in prison, it's called a shakedown. You know what I'm saying? And they would check for contraband. You know what?
Yes.
You're gonna have to do the same thing.
Yeah.
You're gonna have
Yes.
to shake that room down and make sure, man, he's don't got a weapon. He don't have no drugs. You gotta get involved. That is my piece. And also is that we can't be, how can I say, have a judgmental attitude either.
Right.
Absolutely.
We can't scare away. Back in the old days, old school, my parents never showed that they were imperfect. They always put this persona that they were perfect. And since they were perfect, I couldn't talk to them. You see what I'm saying? You got to let, the type of relationship I have with my daughter, she knows my imperfectness. She knows all my defects and weaknesses.
Right.
She knows me. And if you have that relationship, that open, if you're able to share what you've gone through and the mistakes that you've done, that opens up an avenue where your kid might just want to talk to you instead of his uncle or friend or a gang member, or you see what I'm saying?
Right. You know something? It's important that most of the parents that we deal with are either single, and even if they have two parents in the home, they're both working. And so you're saying that they pay attention to the kid. And sometimes you get so stuck in the working every day and providing for your family every day that you actually can't make that connection or that contact. And that's when mentorship comes in. That's what's handy and helpful. But you got to choose the right people to mentor your kids.
That's correct.
I'm not saying to have somebody with that can that comes out, drop out of the sky, and then they're not compatible, or they can't relate. But what I'm saying is you have to interview yourself first as a parent. Where am I losing at? And then you have to find the assistance so that those kids, like you said, don't drop off of a cliff.
The root word to relationship is relate. Have to be able to be relatable. And sometimes, and we've seen it with two-parent homes, where the one-parent home, they think they got a grip on their kid, but they don't do the shakedown, what you're talking about. Like, I've had a mother go through her son's phone only to find out that he's been dealing with drugs. He's been contemplating suicide. He's had a hold of a gun, and that was all found in his phone. Now, had that mama not gone into that phone and found all of that, she couldn't be able to put in the preventative measures that were necessary to start what you're talking about.
Right.
That intervention. That's where it's at. The intervention.
Right.
And there's an old saying: you got to nip something in the bud. You truly do. You got to get a hold of it, and it all starts with communication. But the kid is not going to communicate if he feels like exactly what you were talking about, Laz. You're perfect. You're holy, and I'm just this filthy person that can't,
live up to it.
Live up to your standards. So I just rather talk to my friends. And a lot of kids, that's where their friends enter in.
Yeah. Again, we're raised to be this macho man, this thing like, I'm a provider. If I got a roof over your head, I got food on the table, I've done my job. No, you haven't. Listen, we have to be multidimensional.
Right.
Not only do we have to put food on the table, but we also have to be emotionally there. I look at King David, for example. At the same time, he was a warrior, but at the same time, he wrote love songs. We have to be multidimensional. That's what we have to learn. And it's not all about that I can handle this, I can do this, I got this. Listen, you ain't got nothing. Because up to right now with me, I've tried to do things on my own, and that's when I fail. But when I include him, the carpenter, then things start to change.
Right. When you look at both families, the gang family and the family that you were reared in, there seems to be the same addiction as you would look at a drug user. The gang has it has that addictive quality.
Behavior, the behavior.
And it becomes something that those kids love to be around, that they love to intertwine with. And so what we have to do is to learn a different method of treatment to get our kids not away from that gang violence, away from that gang mentality. Because at the end of the day, just like everyone else, we all want to be loved and recognized.
Amen.
We want to be appreciated.
Yep.
And so appreciate your kids.
That's right.
Recognize your kids' accomplishments and their failures.
Yes.
And learn methods to try to treat that behavior, even if they're involved in gangs.
Absolutely.
You know, that's a beautiful story within itself. When you can reach back into the fire and pull your family out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And when we say family, we mean everybody that's watching this show right now. Everybody that's listening, you are a part of our family.
Yes.
And so what we want you to do is start learning some of the techniques and the methods that we're going to teach you that we've experienced firsthand.
Yes.
That we've been involved in, and we want to show you that hand that's going to reach into the fire and pull you out.
I like the way you talk about family because it's important that it's a shame, Johnny. It's a shame that I had to go to prison to be able to break bread with a white or a black brother. Ain't that crazy? You know, I wasn't raised racist, but it was prejudice. There was segregation, and all of a sudden I see family, and I recognize that, like what the Bible, there is no Gentile, there is no Jew, there is no black, there is no white. Hey, listen, we are all in Christ, and Christ is in all.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So if you're listening, it don't matter if you're black, white, Hispanic, brown, Indian, Chinese. Listen, God is looking out for you. Again, I can't stress it enough. We can't do this on our own.
When you talk about the youth and you talk about families getting involved, I think about the young girl. I was listening to a grandmother who had to basically console her 6-year-old child that had been put in handcuffs and arrested. They're arresting kids at 6 years old, at 7, at 8, at 9, at 10 years old. They're putting him back in the back of squad cars and in handcuffs. And it takes a village.
Yes.
This is what this is. It takes a village. We're talking about numbers. There's a school to prison pipeline. We're going to be talking about that in coming weeks. We're going to be talking about gangs. We're going to be talking about all of the different ripple effects that come from these numbers.
That's right.
That come from these numbers. We have definitely got some things lined up that are going to be impactful, that are going to be insightful, that are definitely going to give you the right information.
If you're listening, listen, sin takes you further than you want to go, keeps you there longer than you want to stay, and definitely is going to cost you more than you want to pay.
Thank you all for listening. And until next week.
Until next week.
Thank you.
Looking for a welcoming church? Connect at leanonmeusa.org. Death or Prison is a production of leanonmeusa.org. Copyright 2020. Death or Prison is offered for information only and is not intended as legal advice. Thank you for listening.